Okay, quick question.
Okay.
If it all crashed down tomorrow and you could not do any of the things that you currently do, what would you do?
Meaning, like if I had to start over?
Yeah.
I would sell something. I don't know.
What would you sell?
I don't know. It's a good question. Good question. But yeah, I would not go into retail. But I'm having to replace my income too, right? Money matters here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I've always kind of liked the entertainment part of things, like having a company that people get excited to go to.
Okay.
Right. I mean, people don't necessarily get excited to call a roofer or a plumber. You know, usually it's not the most exciting of situations.
So what would this company?
You know, well, like I like going, and we just went to Dallas, right? And so like we went to Top Golf. Mm-hmm. Fun. The whole family loved it, which is crazy because not my whole family's not athletic. I've never played golf. Loved it. We love going to escape rooms. We love going to the big Christmas places that they just built the one out in Stonewall. You go out. We didn't have those guys on, by the way. But, it's just entertainment, experiential.
I guess the question for me would be
an arcade.
Okay, yeah, but
I don't know if I would.
But don't you think after, day 67, you walk up and you're just like, I hate this place?
I guess that would depend on the people I'm around.
Yeah. So maybe that's it. Maybe there's something there. It's like, hey, it's more about the people that you're working with than the thing that you're doing.
It'd be awesome. I've always thought this would be great too, is to get an old abandoned building and just do a haunted house. Okay. You just work, you work 6 months getting it prepared and then you run it and it's really crazy and busy for 12 weeks.
Okay.
But dude, I mean, people spend so much money going to those places.
All right. So yeah, you're very much a fun time experiences. I think the board is going to have to review your requests. We're going to really need to see a business plan because the good times, I don't know, man. It just seems like it's, I don't know. It seems like that'd be a tough one, but you're committed. You're into it. You're passionate about it.
Yeah. I mean, you look, it probably does well when the economy's doing well,
Yeah, right.
So it's probably one of the first things to
get the
go.
That's right. That's right.
So I do have to give a shout out to two people have mentioned our podcast to me that they enjoy it. Jen Githens. Jen and Ross Githens have been friends of mine for a long time, and she's a school teacher, and she just said, "Hey, I love the podcast." So give her a shout out. And then Scott, I don't know how you say his last name. R. Do you know him?
Scott.
A-U-E-R. Scott R.
A-U-R.
He owns the Little Shop of Music.
Oh, really?
And he's, just a cool dude. He has a cool shop. If you're in the Shreveport-Bossier area, go. He probably has about, 20 or 30 vintage guitars for sale. And he's always buying. You've been there before?
I've been there a few times, and he has some cool stuff.
He's cool stuff. And just a nice guy. He has and also a good record collection, CDs and stuff like that. Just, nice guy. Nice. I like him. Yeah. So maybe we can have him on the pod, but he said he enjoys listening.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, he is our target audience.
That's right. That's right.
Local business owner.
Somebody just trying to make it work every day.
Yeah. And something he enjoys. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what I would do.
There you go.
Maybe I go partner up with Scott and I go work for Scott.
Yeah. Okay, that sounded good.
Hey,
that sounded fun.
Let me clean the place up.
That's right.
And just get to play on the guitars.
Yeah. Let me buy some rare guitars and see if we can sell them. So you know why we're here today?
Yes, we are talking about not just any goals,
but
SMART goals.
Advanced goal setting.
Yep.
And one of the things that I'd like to distinguish here in the very beginning is the difference between a goal and a wish.
Okay.
Because I think many goals for people are basically just wishes.
Yes.
When I say that, what do you hear?
Well, I just think of, how many times have we been in a meeting with our team and we're frustrated and we say that, right? We're like, man, I wish it wasn't this way. Mm-hmm. Right. And that happens all the time with me. Or I'm like, hey, I'd love to see this happen. I wish that we could do this. And I'm the best at dreaming and the worst at executing. So, hold on, my chair might need to be raised up a little bit. I feel short.
Okay. So you're with the team, and
yeah, I think that it's really implementation, or you actually use the word before that's always stuck with me is integrator. You have to have an integrator. And I think that's what tends to happen, especially when you have a business owner or a visionary. It's like, hey, this would be great. Hey, let's do this. Hey, we need to stop doing this. We need to do this. All right, ready, break. And then the team, and then the next week you're like, all right, what do we do to move the ball forward here? Yeah. And nothing happened.
Yeah. There's a lot of little details.
That
have to get.
And so I think that's what's so great about the SMART goals is it just gives that framework, it kind of covers all the bases.
Yep.
What I think on SMART goal setting is I don't think you have to go in order. Like you don't necessarily have to say, hey, let's start with the S. Because to me, when I'm looking at this, and this might get us a little bit out because we're going to go through the acronym. But for me, I start with R, relevancy. Because to me, it all hinges on it being relevant.
Well, and to be fair, and you want to...
Yeah. Sorry, I keep getting close.
To be fair, let's run the acronym of what makes a goal a SMART goal.
Okay.
Give me that acronym. So it starts with the letter S, which is...
Well, I have my cheat guide here. Specific.
So meaning that it's focused on a specific thing. What is...
Yeah. And, and I would also say, and maybe this goes without saying, but it needs to be written down. I think that's another thing too, is like you have to have somebody in every meeting making the notes, right? And after the notes are made, they're redistributed out, right? By email or something, a Google spreadsheet or something says, hey, this is what we covered. And it has names by each objective or what's to-do list. And then that list gives you the beginning of next week's meeting or whatever that is, right?
We follow.
And so, here's what we talked about last week. Did this get done? That's some accountability. So specific, I think the more specific you can be, and the more significant it can be to accomplishing the mission, the better. So specific. Okay. Yeah. Let me even look at my notebook here. I did some, what made me think of this is that Aaron, he made a coaching blunder on our last session by, instead of asking me questions to pull this out of me, I said something that's frustrating me. He says, well, it sounds like we need to have some SMART goals around it. And he said, wait, what do you think we should do? I'm like, well, SMART goals. Yeah. I think he was just trying to save 5 minutes of our lives and not pull it out.
You're almost up with your hour. He's like, what do you want to do? Could it be a SMART goal?
Could it be a SMART goal? I'm like, some sessions I just want to be told what to do. Don't ask questions. Just tell me.
That's most people.
Yep. So, in fact, my goal, I still haven't fleshed all of it out. We just started, but my frustration was that if I'm not present with this specific team in one of my organizations, if I'm not present with them, the sense of urgency and velocity goes away.
Okay.
And so that was frustrating to me, is I want them to have that same sense of urgency when I'm not there. If I miss 2 weeks with meeting with them, that they're still pedal to the metal moving. And so that's frustrating.
Engaged.
Yes. Like, hey, your job depends on it, because it does.
Right.
But I don't want to have to remind you.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was it. And so we had to come up with some kind of a specific, so I narrowed down to 3 specific objectives that were significant to accomplishing this thing. One was execution. So a goal around execution. I have clear expectations that maybe there's not enough clarity of what I'm expecting. And the other is a feedback loop that gives me the data I need to know that they're moving forward.
Okay.
So those are 3 specific areas that I need to focus on. So anyways.
Specific.
There we go. Specific.
So we follow the acronym down to M.
M. Yep.
And what do you have for M?
Measurable. Measurable. The goal must have some sort of measurement, either, if your goal is to lose weight, measurement is pounds.
Calories eaten. Minutes on the treadmill. Yep. Calories burned.
Usually what we are going to measure in business is going to be based around, money-making activities a lot, money-generating activities. Obviously, we talk about this a lot, but it's just controllables.
Yes.
Right? And I find that it's just shocking how many businesses are not measuring or don't have I like the 40X, the 4 disciplines of execution I use in my companies, but having a scoreboard, right? That we have to be looking at these numbers every week. And they all have to be measurable. So yeah, measurable.
Measurable. Very good.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to A.
A, achievable. The goal must be realistic and reasonable. Achievable.
It's common. It seems like common sense, but maybe it's not. I mean, if we pull back for the big picture of goals, and I started with goals versus wishes, because this conversation to me is all about what's a goal, what's a wish.
Yep.
For a lot of people, they start off the year, it's like New Year's resolution or whatever, and it's like, I want to dunk a basketball.
Yep.
And I think here's where the A comes in, which is maybe that's not achievable for me in this moment.
Well, and I think that, and this goes into another conversation, but I feel like I want most of my goals to be short term, because I think there's also, achievable. Another word I would throw out there is adaptable, is that we have, if we make a year-long goal and things out of our control changes, the economy, a pandemic, right? And so we have to be able to adapt these goals. And so I think that's why I think the sweet spot for goals, obviously, and it's kind of 2 things, right? Because we're talking about the vision or the overall goal for the company, right? And these are kind of micro goals for your team members or yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I like these goals to be, 8 to 12 weeks goals.
Well, we can get into that, but there are different layers of time, the time for each goal.
Sure.
Some goals are big picture goals, and then some goals are medium term, and then we're kind of working right now on this short term. Yeah,
and just thinking of it being achievable, and so you kind of have to be a little tricky to celebrate the wins on what's achievable and not achievable, right? And I think that the misconception is that once a goal is achieved, that you've arrived, and there's really no arriving, right? And that's why it goes back to this frustration I had, this urgency and velocity, right? Is that in their mind, if I'm happy, they've arrived. Right?
Yeah. And you're just a naturally happy person, though. So So maybe that's what it is. Maybe
I think it's just they just need to see if I'm happy, right? So it's like, they're and I want to be happy, and I do have fun around my team members. But there also has to be some tension that we will never arrive.
Right.
Like there's always going to be a next step to take and the next goal to set. And
and that's the goal.
Always.
Goal of one of the biggest roles of leadership.
Yes.
It's just to keep pushing and
yes.
doing that. Okay.
Yes.
So, all right. So R.
Relevant.
Relevant.
The goal must be relevant to what you're hoping to accomplish. And so that's when I go back to, let's not even waste time if this isn't a relevant goal to what our overall mission as a company is.
Yes.
And so I kind of skip there, right? Because I've had some personally looking back, I've made some horrible decisions and wasted a lot of time and a lot of money on things that were not there to win the war, so to speak. Right. They were just seemed like a good idea.
Yep.
And I didn't have anybody there to tell me that's a dumb idea.
that is a rabbit that you're chasing. That's a shiny thing.
Yes.
It's just pulling you off the path.
Yes. And so we actually, Adam, my business partner at Berkshire Hathaway, he took this from Amazon. Jeff Bezos has a book. And one of the things that they require, I'm not sure what the name of the book is, and it might even be about Jeff Bezos. It might be somebody else in the organization, but it's like 10 principles from Amazon. One thing they do is if somebody has an idea, they come to the table with a press release already written. And it is explaining in details the who, what, when, where, how, why, and it's all fleshed out.
And that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it forces the person with the idea to think it all the way through.
All the way through. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge time saver too.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it keeps morale high because I would imagine they're putting in effort into thinking through this idea. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to either change the idea or realize it's not a good one.
Well,
right.
Maybe it keeps morale high. What if you're in IT and you're like, oh, here comes another press release. Here's what they signed me up for this time.
Well, I just think that I'm really good. One of my gifts is to punch holes in people's ideas and to know why it won't work. Right. So if that's all you're doing, bringing ideas and me shooting them down, eventually you're going to stop bringing ideas.
That's right.
Right. And so it's just making them look through the lens of the owner, or what the vision is. And so that's a pretty cool idea. And so we actually do that, and we've had people bring ideas to the table and we're like, well, hey, take it back. You have a week till we meet again. Take it back, write a press release on how this accomplishes our overall goals, or remind them of what the overall company goal is. And then, every one of my team members have their own individual goals. And so then they have to is this accomplishing one of your goals or somebody else's goal? Right. Or none of the above.
Yeah.
So relevancy.
I like it.
Has to be relevant.
Okay. T
is a time frame. Got to have a time frame on it, or time bound.
Time bound.
Yes. The time frame has to be reasonable. And I've found this is just usually when I have a manager that's frustrated at something not getting done, that they leave this part off. Right. It's the thing where, my wife asked me to take out the trash. I'm like, sure, I'll take out the trash. Now it might be in 2 days, I'll take it out.
You didn't say when.
You didn't say when. And so, or, same thing with my kids. Hey, you need to take a shower at some point today.
I like that. You just go ahead and bake that deadline in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's well done.
Yeah. So, but it is true, it's just different to say, hey, I need this created or this done or this person called. And, if you don't put a time frame on it, it's very likely it's going to slip through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so thank you for walking us through the SMART goal framework.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about how I've been approaching goals of late. And a big shift for me, again, I'm going to go back to goals versus wishes. if you have a goal, this is the way I've been trying to explain to people. If you have a goal for this year, say for me, it's I want to lose 10 pounds.
Yep.
Okay. So we know that we know what the S.M.A.R.T framework looks like and sounds like. But first, before we go to start to set goals, so take the weight loss goal, we want to back up. We want to back up all the way towards the ideal wheel. Okay. So we had previous episodes on the ideal wheel.
Yep.
You're familiar with the concept. But ultimately, what I'm looking at is in the ideal wheel, what, for me personally, what goals would help me build out a more full and round ideal wheel? Mm-hmm. So be it spiritually, be it financially, be it professionally, socially, whatever those things are. From measuring myself on that ideal wheel of where I am versus where I want to be, now I can begin to set goals based on values. Okay, so that's a big one for me. First, set the goal based on a value, not just a whim. Okay.
Yep.
So if I know that in my life physically, like I want to lose that 10 pounds. So in my ideal wheel, I want to grow my ideal wheel in the mode of my physical health. Okay. So from there, I'm going to say, what are the things that are going to give me a better sense of physical health? What's going to make me more healthy? And I land on this thing. Okay, so losing 10 pounds, right? That'd be great.
Yep.
So from there, I have to reverse engineer that goal to say on a daily or weekly basis, what are the controllables that I'm going to have to hit consistently to get to this goal, which is losing 10 pounds. Yep. So we talked about it. It's exercising 6 times a week. It's lifting weights 3 times a week. It's running 3 times a week. It's reducing my sugary beverage intake. It is, not eating biscuits every Saturday morning, whatever it is, right? Yeah. We can measure those things. Mm-hmm. They are specific. They are achievable. It's relevant to what I want to do. And time bound, meaning I want to do this. I want to maintain this weight or lose this weight by the end of the year. So I'm using the S.M.A.R.T framework. Yep. I've set the goal based on my values of what's important to me. And now I have daily or weekly controllables that as I go through the week, I can either clearly say, yes, I did this, or no, I did not.
Yeah.
So it's almost like what are the daily or weekly key, they call them all kind of stuff, like key habits or atomic habits,
indicators,
KPIs, whatever they are.
Yeah.
But the only way I'm going to get to this goal is not by wishing that I'm going to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
It's by these specific behaviors that I can say, did you do it? Yes. Yeah. Or did you do it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And that for me has totally changed the way I look at goal setting. Mm-hmm. That whole, I know I had to kind of paint a big picture.
Yep.
Because if you don't, I do feel like you come at it with, yeah, that sounds good. I should do that.
Well, I think that what's really the SMART goals is just a starting place in what you're doing. Some things have to surround. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but like this is like the nucleus, but you got to surround it with some stuff. And I think that you mentioned values, man, how, there so many companies that don't have values or employees that don't know what the values of the company are, right? And I would say that I have weak spots in my organizations of people not knowing the values and there not being clarity there. Mm-hmm. But that has to be, if there are no values, then the foundation for doing something is because you're being told to do it, right? And so now you create this micromanaging type organization where you're doing things because you don't want to show up and get in trouble for not doing it. Yeah. Not because it's value driven to accomplish whatever that value is.
Right.
So I think that that's huge. Let me ask you this: on your organization, how many total employees are in your organization?
About 60-ish, in the 60s.
Percentage-wise, if I went and asked them, hey, can you name one of our core values? Do you think they would know them?
So we're bigger in mission statement. And that's the thing that we really try.
But it encapsulates your values too, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. And so rather than listing out 19
Sure.
19 core, beliefs. Like for me, it's like you can pretty much get it from the mission statement. This is what we're here to do.
And percentage wise, how many do you think of those 60 could recite it?
I think it's pretty high.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody, but we are constantly like at our events, we'll ask people, give them the gift card, that kind of thing. So it's been important to us.
Yeah.
Because, listen, there's a cynical way to look at this, but the reality is we're human beings. And if you're making music, people will connect to the music because of, who you are and what they're connecting to. In business, there's a parallel, right? The parallel is I know there's people who work for our organization that share what's important to us. They connect with this idea of, I like that this is the focus. I like that this is what our values are here. I like that this is our mission. People do connect to that. Don't ever discount that idea that people are just showing up for a paycheck. I'm sure there's millions of people in America that do that, but there's also millions of people in America that will show up and say, this is the kind of people I want to be around. I believe that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that's, I think I'll tell you, when you find the people with that mindset, you do everything you can to keep them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
100%.
And so there's a lot that goes into that for sure. I think the other thing when we talk about values, that being value kind of being around the SMART goal or driving it. I think the other thing that's not in the SMART goal framework that has to be there is accountability.
Oh, 100%.
So like even taking the analogy of losing the 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are people out there that don't need the accountability, but that's very rare.
Few and far between, like Jocko or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you can have accountability that's direct, like, hey, I need you to call me and make sure I get this done. But then also there's just some of it is just this responsibility that's built in accountability. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like some of my accountability is driven by, if I don't wake up, if I don't keep this going, my family's not going to be supported.
Yeah.
Right. Or if I don't do this or get this right, I have X amount of employees that are depending on me to get this right.
Yes.
Right. So there is that built-in accountability there. But then even just especially the way that I think, and I'm big picture, always looking at the next step. If I don't have real tangible accountability, somebody's going to ask me in a week if I did this, then it's very easily procrastinated and put on the next week.
Yeah. Well, and that's partly because of your position, you, in all your companies, you sit at the top. And there is literally no one that you report to.
That's right.
I mean, you do report to your team in a way, and you do report to your customers in a way, of course. But the idea that, one of the things when I'll have my PCs with my managers and direct reports is I'll type up this little recap, and we call it the to-do review.
PC is a personal conference.
Personal conference, right? So we sit for an hour every week and we go through the week. But then I'll email the recap. And what's so funny is that right before the next meeting hits, I know they pull that up and they look at it and they're like,
did I do what I was supposed to do?
Yeah, I got to go through the list.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing way. Well, it's easy accountability.
Yeah. Well, and I do the same thing with coaching, right? I mean, every time I have a coaching session, I have a to-do list of what I'm going to be doing. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, coaching, my coaching calls on Wednesday. On Monday, I'm looking to see if I've done what I said I was going to do.
And it is not that your coach is going to come in and throw fireballs at you if you didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's just the simple mechanism of knowing that somebody is going to ask.
Yes. And I think that's easy. And I think that's the key. That's what's difficult about it is our human nature. We don't want accountability, right? But we have to be the ones that go seek it out and give permission to be held accountable. Yeah. Right. And so if we want it to be effective.
Well, you just said something really important there was you give permission. So if I'm your coach, right? And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to say, hey, tell me the goals that are important to you. Because once you bring me the goals that are important to you, in a sense, now I'm more or less asking permission to hold you accountable to your own goals.
Yeah.
So I don't have to come in hard. I don't have to come in hot. At the end of the day, Leighton, if I said, Leighton, did you exercise 6 times this week? And you say, no, I didn't. Well, at the end of the day, that's important to you, right? Yeah. You don't need me to come in hot and say, man, you're a failure. You're worthless. Yeah. It's important to you, right? You know that you need to be doing it. Sure. So all I'm doing is just helping you with something that you know is important.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's just a really good tool to have in your toolkit as a manager, is to use that's been huge for me, is ask permission. Okay. And then ask specifically. So what I'll do is say, hey, this is a goal you want to accomplish, right? Your business is slow. You want to sell 10 more houses this year. Do I have permission to hold you accountable?
Well, yeah,
they're going to say yes.
Yeah, I want the money.
Yes. All right. Then I'm going to say, how does that look to you?
Yeah.
Do you want me calling you every day? You want me texting you on Wednesdays? You want me to send you an email once a month? Mm-hmm. Like, how does that look to you to hold you accountable?
Should we work on better weekly controllables for that?
Yeah. Well, what you don't want to happen is, people start avoiding your phone calls because you're holding accountable, right? And so it's like, well, how does this work for you to be held accountable? And so that gives, because everybody's different, and once they give that permission, it's not awkward, and you're not coming at them like a parent is to a child. Like, you're not having to micromanage. They've given you permission, so it's expected.
It's more of a coach, and you are helping them become, the best version of themselves they can be.
Yep.
And that's value. That's bringing real value to somebody, as opposed to just kind of, smacking them around and tell them, you're never going to amount to nothing.
Well, it's a toxic environment, and nobody wants to be a part of that.
Right.
And, and that'll bleed through a company. And, being in the trade industries, that's the default way of managing.
Oh, in most industries.
Right. Even yesterday, or a couple of days ago, one of my managers was talking about the team leader saying, he's going to go and, talk about how, if we don't keep this going or we don't get this up, then, we're going to, we're going to have to downsize the team or something like that. I'm like, whoa, we don't want to lead from fear, right? And maybe there is a healthy bit of that, is them knowing how serious it actually is.
Right.
But that's just not a good angle to go.
Yeah. Well, you're on it, which is that there are stakes to what we do. And, sometimes those stakes are more real than others. Some days you can really feel the stakes.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to let that person go, everybody would see, okay, this is real. Yeah. I was telling somebody the other day, it's like, you're watching this TV show and none of the main characters ever die. You kind of get lulled into this idea that, they're all going to live forever, and there's no stakes.
Yeah.
But if you take a show, like Game of Thrones or whatever, keep referencing it, and they kill the hero in like episode 2, and you're like, whoa, everything is on the table.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they will do anything. And so I'm not saying that it's that kind of fear environment, but it's just the reality of the stakes of what we do.
Yeah.
And that sometimes, yes, there are downsizes made. People, you do have to let people go.
Yeah.
And as much as that sucks, there are stakes to what we do, right? You said in your negotiation, like, I've got to feed my family.
Yeah.
You all, everybody who work here, need to feed your family. To do this, it's going to take sometimes hard decisions.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where really leading from a controllable mindset, like, what are things we can do as leaders to keep the vision clear, to keep that going? Because, nobody, this idea of every couple of months I'm having a come to Jesus meeting with the whole team, and then I'm going to see good production for the next couple of weeks, and then it starts slowing down again. Then I have to go. It's a repetitive cycle that's just miserable for everybody involved. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's why I think these SMART goals are just, they're huge, right? I mean, that's part of that controllable, is that I want everybody in my organization to know what's expected of them. What does it look like to win? Whenever 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whenever the day ends, I know that I won today. Like, everything that was expected of me was done, because there's clarity involved. I think that's really where the burnout and the frustration and the turnover and people coming and not staying long or being cancerous and being divisive and bad attitudes, it really does come down to the leadership having these very clear goals set for each person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but it's not easy.
No. And one last thing I'd want to add to this is you don't want to be on the backside of that goal. You don't want to be on the backside of that time frame and basically saying, hey, so this year we want to grow our business 15%.
Yeah.
And then it's a wish. And then you get to the end of the time frame and you either did it or you didn't. Mm-hmm. And you realize how powerless you were. You realize how you were just blown by the winds of fortune, basically.
Yeah.
It either happened or it didn't. I've sat in big meetings with a big organization and I've watched them goal set and it was like, we want to go up, like 300 million next year. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, it's that easy. That's all you got to do is just say it.
Yeah.
But realizing that, man, I wanted to just jump in and say, guys, what would we have to do every single day to hit this goal?
Yeah.
And can we do that first? Can we break it down?
Yeah.
Because if you can't break it down, if it's not a controllable, if you can't say yes or no to it, do you have any power over that? Or is it just a wish?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I think that when you go back to this achievable, let's set quarterly goals, not yearly goals or weekly or monthly, right? I mean, we're down now. I mean, one of my managers earlier this week, we're talking about, okay, like to hit our yearly goal, this is what needs to be generated every day.
Yes.
By each technician.
Yeah.
And then it's like, so if they don't hit this number every single day, we're losing money on that employee.
Now that's what's generated.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you is how many leads does it take to generate that?
Yes. Well, and that's where, you think of everybody has to be playing their part, right? Because I have another team or personnel that's the one that's generating, right? Now, this person could be knocking out of the park and generating everything we need to generate. But then once it's handed off, if the ball gets fumbled, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, and that's what our goal is. That's why we have to have the scoreboard set up.
Yeah.
Like I have to say, well, this person hit their goal. They generated 30 opportunities this week.
Yeah.
We only converted 50%.
Yep.
So whose fault is that?
Right. Or how did ops do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so man, it's just, and I found, really having the data in the spreadsheet, like to review every week is just massive for me. And if, to make this work, we're depending on 10 people all doing the right thing every single day. I mean, it's very rare that it happens.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so then it's like, well, how fast can I identify the weak spot and course correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it never stops.
No, it never stops. And it's very akin to coaching a football team, a big football team.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of variation, a lot of variability. And you start to realize that people who lead organizations that are bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger are just better and more skilled coaches to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Like you take a college football team that's got a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator, one guy that's just kind of like CEOing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's really impressive when you see these big local businesses because you realize the level of skill that it takes to run an organization as it gets bigger and more complex and bigger and bigger. And we get to have some of those people on the podcast, which is amazing.
Yeah. And
I'm always so impressed because I'm going, man, I know you don't know like what's happening in this little corner of your business over there. Like you don't know. Yep. You're so big. Like how do you even know what's going on in your plumbing truck right now that's out in, who knows, Sibley, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what's going on in that truck right now?
I don't know.
But the idea that you can manage it and lead it towards victory is so impressive.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I envy the most about these business owners.
Oh, yeah.
Just the level of skill that it takes.
Yeah.
Because you can't be everywhere.
You can't be. And it really is a mind shift too, right? I mean, it takes, and that's why coaching is so important, but it is a mind shift or you hit a ceiling, right? Or burnout. So, and then you can't scale, right? I think they call it the founder's curve. It's pretty much where on a line, on a graph, it's the plateau.
Yep.
Where the founder can't do anymore and has bottlenecked the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
And it seems like it's there for just about everybody, right? Like, unless you're some elite talent.
Yeah.
I mean, just the level of skill that it takes to just keep the growth going.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Good stuff. We need to shout out our sponsors.
Let's do it.
Let's see. We have Plumber for Hire. Let me see if I can find my notes. Plumber for Hire. Yep. Locally owned plumbing company specializing in residential and commercial plumbing. All jobs. I think one of the things I like about Plumber for Hire is we run pretty lean. And so it's very rare we can't get to something the day of, or at least get it scheduled for the next day. So 318-709-9090, plumberforhiresbc.com. We have Priority Roofing. Shay and Hannah have been on our podcast. A lot of comments on their picture. I don't know if you noticed that. So it is that one might set the record for
I think so.
most listeners. Mm-hmm. But man, they're great. And it really is a large company that's growing really quickly, but it feels like you still have access to the owners, which is pretty cool to have. Residential, commercial roofing, repairs, replacements, everything. They do all things roofing. 318-202-2123, 202-2123, or visit their website, PriorityRoofingLLC.com. And Ivy's
Building Materials, 3 locations, Houghton, Mansfield, and now in Blanchard or North Shreveport. We are Northwest Louisiana's only locally owned home center format, meaning we're a hardware store and a pro lumber yard all in one. So if you want to fix a faucet, you can do it. If you want to build a house, you can do it. IVEYLumber.com.
How do you feel about people bringing pets in the store?
It happens. It happens. And, for the most part, it's never a problem.
Yeah.
But it does happen occasionally. And, look, some people like to stay close to their pets. Yeah. I personally, don't carry my cat around.
I have a whole theory about people that bring their like dogs in public. I'm like, you're doing this because you want attention.
That's right.
Not because your dog was begging to go to a restaurant today.
That's right. That's right.
They probably want to be at home laying on their dog bed.
True. Very true.
Oh my goodness. All right. Clint Davis Counseling.
For people who have to bring their pets everywhere they go.
Yes. Funny story. Jason, who we need to have on again, tells a story about a client of his counseling. He does counseling, and a client coming in with a pet monkey. So speaking of Clint Davis Counseling, they take all types of people, helping people make lasting internal change for external growth and success. So ClintDavisCounseling.com, 318-562-6903. And they have a new location that just opened up in North Bossier, Benton area. So
yeah, great company, great guy.
Great guy. Yeah. Go back and listen to episode 2 of season 2.
That's right. All right, man. Good stuff. Thanks for the knowledge, and we will. I'll see you again soon.
Yes.